Ever feel like your life is just one big, complicated mess? Well, that was pretty much my daily reality. My name is Maya, and for the past few years, my world has been a cycle of hospital visits, checkups, and the constant nagging feeling that time was running out. Being terminally ill has a way of putting things into perspective. You learn to appreciate the small stuff, like the warmth of the sun on a cool day or the taste of your favorite ice cream. But you also learn to build walls, high and thick, to protect your heart from getting too attached to a future you might not have. My boyfriend Leo was the one person who refused to be kept out by those walls. We met in college, long before my diagnosis, back when my biggest worry was passing my calculus final. He was brilliant, funny, and had this incredible way of making me feel like the only person in the room. When I got sick, I tried to push him away. I told him he deserved a normal life, a future without the shadow of a hospital hanging over it. I didn't want him to waste his best years caring for me. But Leo, being Leo, just wouldn't listen. He'd just smile that goofy smile of his and say, "My life is with you, Maya. Normal is overrated anyway." He became my rock, my personal comedian, and my chef, even though his cooking skills were questionable at best. He learned how to manage my medications, sat with me through every single treatment, and held my hand when the pain was too much to bear. He never once made me feel like a burden. Instead, he made me feel loved, truly and unconditionally. Our friends and family were amazing, but Leo was different. He was my partner in every sense of the word. He was the one who saw past the illness and still saw me. One Tuesday afternoon, Leo told me he had a surprise. He was acting strangely all day, a mix of nervous energy and excitement. He insisted I wear my favorite dress, the blue one he bought me for my birthday last year. I was a bit weak that day, so getting ready felt like climbing a mountain, but his enthusiasm was contagious. He drove us to the botanical garden, a place we both loved. It was our special spot where we had our first real date. The flowers were in full bloom, painting the landscape with vibrant strokes of red, yellow, and purple. He led me to a secluded bench under a giant weeping willow tree, its branches creating a private little haven just for us. The air smelled sweet, a mix of damp earth and blooming roses. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, just enjoying the moment. My head rested on his shoulder, and for a little while, I almost forgot I was sick. It was just us surrounded by beauty, a perfect little bubble of peace. Then Leo turned to face me, his hands holding mine. His palms were a little sweaty, and his voice was shaky when he started to speak. He talked about our journey together, the laughter, the tears, the silly arguments over what movie to watch, and the quiet moments that meant everything. He reminded me of the time I tried to teach him how to bake, and we ended up covering the entire kitchen in flour.
He talked about how my strength inspired him every single day.
With every word, my heart beat a little faster. Suddenly, he slid off the bench and knelt on one knee. My breath caught in my throat. He pulled out a small velvet box from his pocket. My eyes started to well up before he even opened it. "Maya," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "I know our future is uncertain. I know we don't know what tomorrow holds. But what I do know, with every fiber of my being, is that I want to spend every single second I have left with you. I don't care if it's 50 years or 50 days. I want to be your husband." He opened the box, and inside was the most beautiful ring I had ever seen. It was a simple, elegant band with a small, sparkling diamond that seemed to catch all the light in the garden. Tears were streaming down my face now, but they were happy tears. I was so overwhelmed with love and shock that I couldn't even speak. I just nodded over and over again. He let out a breath he seemed to have been holding forever and slid the ring onto my finger. It was a perfect fit. He stood up and pulled me into a hug, burying his face in my hair. I could feel him shaking slightly. "Is that a yes?" he whispered, his voice muffled. "Yes," I finally managed to choke out, laughing through my tears. "A million times, yes." We stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other, the rest of the world fading away. In that moment, I wasn't a sick girl. I was just a girl who was deeply, completely in love, engaged to the most wonderful man in the world. The proposal wasn't about defying my illness or pretending it didn't exist. It was about choosing love, choosing us, regardless of the time we had. When we told our families, the reaction was a tidal wave of emotions. My parents cried, of course. My mom hugged Leo so tightly I thought she might never let him go. My dad, a man of few words, just clapped Leo on the shoulder, his eyes glistening, and said, "Welcome to the family, son. Thank you for loving my girl." Leo's parents were just as emotional, welcoming me with open arms and calling me their daughter. Our friends threw us a small impromptu engagement party. It was filled with laughter, happy tears, and so much love it felt tangible. Planning a wedding, however, came with its own set of challenges. We knew we didn't have the luxury of a long engagement. We had to be realistic. Some days I felt great, full of energy to look at venues and taste cakes. Other days I could barely get out of bed. The uncertainty was the hardest part. How do you plan for a day when you don't know if you'll be strong enough to walk down the aisle? But Leo, as always, was my anchor. He took charge of the planning, but he made sure every single decision was mine. He brought me bridal magazines in the hospital, set up video calls with wedding planners, and even arranged for a dress designer to come to our home for a fitting when I was too weak to go out. He was determined to give me the wedding of my dreams, no matter what it took. We decided on a small, intimate ceremony in the backyard of my parents' house. It was where I grew up, a place filled with happy memories. We wanted it to be simple, meaningful, and surrounded by the people who mattered most. We chose a date just a few weeks away. It felt rushed, but it also felt right. We didn't want to wait. We wanted to be married. The week before the wedding was a roller coaster. I had a particularly bad few days and had to be admitted to the hospital for observation. I was terrified we would have to postpone everything. I remember lying in the hospital bed, crying, feeling like my own body was betraying me. Leo sat by my side, holding my hand, never leaving. He talked to the doctors, advocated for me, and reassured me that no matter what happened, we would get married. Even if it had to be right there, in that hospital room. Miraculously, I started to feel better. The doctors adjusted my medication, and my strength slowly returned. They discharged me just 2 days before the wedding, with strict orders to take it easy. Going home felt like a victory. The house was buzzing with last-minute preparations. Friends and family had transformed the backyard into a fairy tale setting, with strings of fairy lights, white roses everywhere, and a beautiful archway where we would say our vows. The morning of our wedding, I woke up feeling surprisingly calm and energized. The sun was shining, and it felt like a sign. My mom and my best friend Sarah helped me get ready. Putting on my wedding dress was a surreal moment. It was a simple, ivory gown, light and flowing. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a patient. I saw a bride. Walking down the aisle on my dad's arm was one of the most powerful moments of my life. All our loved ones were there, their faces shining with love. And at the end of the aisle was Leo, looking impossibly handsome in his suit, his eyes locked on mine. I could see the tears welling up in his eyes, and it made my own heart swell. Our vows were deeply personal. We didn't talk about sickness or time. We talked about love, about partnership, about finding our soulmate. We promised to cherish every moment, to laugh every day, and to always be there for each other. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, and Leo kissed me, the world erupted in cheers. It was pure, unadulterated joy. Our reception was perfect. It wasn't a wild party, but a warm, intimate celebration of love. We had our first dance under the stars to our favorite song. Leo held me close, and for those 3 minutes, nothing else mattered. I felt strong, I felt beautiful, and I felt so incredibly lucky. I knew my future was still uncertain. I knew there would be more hard days ahead. But in that moment, married to the love of my life, I also knew that my life, however long or short it might be, was full. It was complete. Leo's proposal wasn't just about a ring or a wedding. It was a promise. A promise that no matter what, we would face it together. And that, I realized, is the most beautiful kind of love there is. A love that doesn't see endings, only an eternity of moments. Thank you for listening to my story. Please subscribe for more.